With the ANC elections on the horizon, it's becoming interesting to see who's going to be running. Obviously, Cyril's in the run, but Cyril's tainted. Cyril's tainted because of the Pala Pala incident and his potential scandals around money laundering. But it's becoming interesting to see who else is going to be running. Ramon, apparently NDZ's running. What do you think of that?
So I'm a big supporter of NDZ. I supported her in 2017, and now I support her again because based on the article that we have in front of us, she might be running once again. So it might be a repeat of 2017. And I think it's important to understand why I support NDZ is because she is weak. Because she's a weak character, she's a weak person, and therefore, and also, most importantly, she's not very much liked by the media class in South Africa. So therefore, I think the deterioration of the ANC will go at a much, let's say, faster pace under her than under Cyril Ramaphosa. So therefore, I support NDZ wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so this is a news article that Ramon is referencing. You can see it on the screen. So the news article was basically written by the Daily Maverick, which says that NDZ's daughter basically signaled on a WhatsApp group her mother's intention to run. So you can see what she's done is she's forwarded some lovely little posters of her mother looking very joyful, and basically saying that she's going to be potentially looking to run on a Womenla type program. I don't know what Womenla means,
Me neither.
but there is one thing I want to come back to, but we'll come back to it in a minute. And basically, the article says that she'll run as a RET faction candidate. Ramon and I have frequently on numerous points highlighted that there is no such thing as the RET. There's just the ANC who is obvious as to what they want to do, and the ANC who tries to be covert around what they want to do.
Yeah.
And apparently, because Cyril is tainted, she's running and she thinks that somehow she has a chance. But as you very rightly said, the article does end by saying she's popular in the ANC but not out because of her disciplinary style during the COVID-19 bull rubbish, was repeatedly turned into memes. So we obviously all saw the thing about when you all and all the other kind of rubbish that she came out with. And during the state of disaster, it was frequently joked that she was the real president. Every time Cyril said he'd allow something, she'd go on the next day and say actually she wouldn't. So yeah, she's not very popular. Do you think she's got a chance?
I think she actually has a strong chance. A lot of people might be thinking to themselves, well, Cyril's still quite popular as a politician, NDZ is not, but that's fine. Prior to the 2017 election, where Cyril won, internal polling of the ANC showed that Cyril had like a 70% approval rating and NDZ had a 25 to 30% approval rating. But when the results actually came in, Cyril only won by 160 votes or 150 votes, whatever it was. So it was much tighter than the polling would suggest. Because for the ANC, polling means very little internally. It's about who can bribe the most. Cyril could bribe quite a lot because all the YTs gave him a lot of money to do the bribing back in 2017. But now, Cyril is probably at his weakest that he's ever been.
Mm.
Does he have the same amount of money? Because he won't use his own, of course, right? He'll use someone else's. But does he have the funds to bribe people to vote for him once again? I have my doubts about that. Whereas NDZ, who is liked by the radical elements of the ANC, might have a lot more money because, Dermot's a shithole because they stole all the money. So most of that money can go to NDZ to fund her campaign and to bribe delegates at the elective conference. So
Mm.
I don't think we should be flippant about NDZ joining the race. I think this is a credible threat against Cyril Ramaphosa because let's face it, and I'll end on this point. The only other candidate is William Kize, but William Kize is tainted because of the
Digital vibes.
let's digital vibe stuff, but which that was leaked on purpose to discredit him, maybe by Cyril himself, because when Kize was a health minister under COVID, everyone liked him, etc., etc., etc. And Zweli is actually quite a competent guy. But now, as Zweli can punt NDZ wins, Zweli becomes de facto prime minister, de facto leader of the ANC and of the country. This is a good way for him to get into the upper echelons of power in South Africa. And Zweli has a sizable constituency in KZN.
Mm.
So all those things bring to mind that this it could be a bit cutthroat and neck rather than, of course, Cyril will win. I have my doubts about that.
Yeah, so I suppose for me the big thing is everybody's saying that NDZ is not tainted, and yet in the same article they talk about the state the States Capture Commission and all the money that was supposedly missing from the State Security Agency from the 2017 race. And as we know, Jacob Zuma was very famous for having used the State Security Agency as his own personal piggy bank. So it goes to reason that potentially her the implication is that possibly some of her funding at the time was, should we say, taxpayer funded.
Sure.
But I did say there was one thing I wanted to come back on, and I suppose this becomes one of the more salient points for me. I'd love to know your thoughts on it, but just to bring everybody back up to the article, it says, pray with Minister of Kogata. And then it says back to the vision, and then it says hosted by African Religious and Traditional Leaders Council. And I suppose the big question I have from myself is, what's your view on this, Ramon? Like, what do you think about these so-called political leaders gaining support from the religious leaders, given that these religious leaders seem to be cozying up with communists, but as we know from the Soviet Union, when the communists came into power, the religious leaders were the first to disappear. It's a bit like dancing with the devil, isn't it? What do you think?
Well, these are African religious leaders. Remember that. So first and foremost, religion in Africa is a cultural thing more than a religious thing. So I mean, if you go to a Shembe Church or ZCC, which is the same thing, it's a giant cultural aspect of traditional Black South African life. And the ANC has always said and always had the support of traditional leaders and traditional churches. These are not the Church of England, which apologizes for wokeness or bullshit like that. These are the people that hold a lot of power in South Africa because churches are a big business for their pastors in South Africa, and most importantly, number two, they have huge congregations and they have a lot of influence. I mean, if you're going to influence someone to eat grass or drink petrol, as pastors have done in South Africa, you can certainly influence them on how to vote at the next election. So the ANC has been very good at getting traditional leaders, who also have a lot of power, and traditional churches to vote for their candidates.
Mm. But
So it makes complete sense for her to go to a conference with these people that hold a lot of influence and tell them, listen, I'm the best thing for you.
I find it curious, given that obviously what we have seen on the horizon is things like hate speech bills, which could make it criminal to take the position, such as that marital union should be between a man and a woman, and yet here we are. This is the actual very government who's proposing these type of things, cozying up with the very people that could criminalize their teachings and their actions. So for me, it seems very curious why you would want to entertain these people. Of course, we know it's about power and influence. We know that, but it seems incredibly short-sighted from my perspective.
Yeah, Byron, we're not in England, my friend. This is Africa. And in Africa, there's only two things that matters: power and influence. Do you think the taxi bosses cared when the Firearms Control Act came into existence? No. They just carried on carrying illegal
Purchasing.
firearms,
They carried
right?
on purchasing their firearms from the local police station, mate. Same
Exactly.
as all the other criminals.
Exactly. Do you think the churches care about the hate speech bill? No. They just want to know that they can still extract wealth from their congregants. And if they can extract more wealth under NDZ government, they will support that, irrespective of any hate speech bill or bullshit like that. The laws don't matter at all.
Well, there you have it, folks. NTZ's running. So Cyril,
So,
where's your
question for
heart at?
you. So, good question for you. Who would you prefer, Byron? NDZ or Cyril?
Oh, NTZ, mate. Because everybody
Yeah.
knows that she's the Wicked Witch of the West. So there's no like camouflage there. Whereas, do you remember Ramaphoria? Like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, Cyril will fix everything, and he's been the hardest communist South Africa's ever had. But
Yeah.
you look at NDZ, no one looks at her going, oh, there'll be NDZ-aphoria. Like they're
I was
like,
about to
no,
say. There was
there's the Wicked Witch of the West. That's it.
Yeah, no xenophobia here, my friends,
Mm.
none whatsoever. She lacks any form of like any character that makes her like kind and sweet and jokey or like a human being. She's like an automaton who just hates cigarettes. Like that's all she does, right? That's all
Absolutely.
she does. That's all she represents. And if you and the only thing that Cyril has for himself is that he's a little bit funny sometimes and he speaks like a white person. NDZ has neither of those things.
No. And she doesn't
And
know how to
therefore,
say anything in the polite manner either. If she wants to be tyrannical, Cyril has a way of being like, I'm going to be really harsh and critical
yeah,
now and really tyrannical, but you're going to think I'm a nice guy. Whereas with her,
exactly.
it's like, no, you
Yeah,
know,
she's like, we're gonna ban cigarettes because when people all they share it. So fuck you, no cigarettes. Like simple as
absolutely.
that. But,
That's it.
and I can respect that. So yeah,
But
so
it's not
I'm
the
for
political
NDZ.
way.
Yeah,
It's not the
I'm for
political way.
NDZ. I'm for NDZ. I hope she wins, and I hope she destroys the ANC faster than Cyril currently is. And I think there'll be 2024 will be a much more interesting election if NDZ is the president rather than Cyril Ramaphosa. So all of you watching, support NDZ. Come on,
I agree. That's it for now. Until the next one. Take it easy.
cheers.